I haven't spoken to my dad in years. I don't hate him. I'm not angry at him. I just don't want him in my life anymore. There's a lot of reasons, but all around, he's just a crappy person who was never hugely involved in my life after I turned 18 anyway. He's texted and called throughout the years, but it was always a half-hearted attempt, and the last time I really spoke to him, I told him I only wanted him to reach out when he was ready to genuinely apologize for how terrible he was. He was supposed to get married at the end of January and thought it was really important for me to be there. He called and texted, pleading for me to come, but I really just had no interest in it. I felt bad for his future wife. He's been engaged 4 times since my parents broke up, and it never worked. And after my brother, who's still in contact with him, told me this woman was selling her house and moving several hours away from where she lived with a small child to be with him, I felt worse. But I still didn't say anything. Yesterday, the future wife called me and left me a voicemail. She honestly sounds like a really nice lady, which just made me feel so much worse for her. So I decided to call her back, and we actually spoke for a really long time. His side of the story is our mom filled my head with lies about him, and I refused to speak to him because of that. So I told her the truth. All of it. How he was manipulative and had anger issues, how horrible of a father he was, and how he always lied. I mean, this man lied about crap that didn't even matter. He lied just to lie, and he wasn't even good at it, so most of the time he got caught. I told her, I'm sure it doesn't seem like that now, but if she believed even half of the stories I told her, she should keep her house and not marry him. Because she honestly might not have a place to live in a year because he's also terrible with money. Everyone was calm during this conversation, and towards the end, she thanked me and said I gave her a lot to think about. I did not do this to be malicious and ruin his life. I did it because she asked me, and I wasn't going to lie to her. Well, apparently all hell broke loose last night. I'm currently sick, so I went to bed early and slept in today and woke up to my phone blowing up, and everyone in my family is angry at me. Turns out, the fiance decided to end things and went back home. No argument and no changing her mind. She sent me a long message around midnight last night thanking me for opening her eyes. My dad thinks I'm being vindictive because I hate him. I don't. And everyone else in my immediate family thinks I went sticking my nose where it didn't belong because I didn't even want to be a part of the wedding anyway. I definitely didn't think I was doing anything wrong, but did I? As far as I'm concerned, I kept that woman from being miserable. But everyone else says I chose to not be a part of his life, and since I made that choice, whatever he does doesn't involve me. Edit. How can you know what kind of person he is? He could have changed. Yes, he could have. Just because I don't talk to him doesn't mean my siblings don't. And from what they've told me, nothing has changed, so I had no reason to tell her things were different. If you don't want to be involved, why did you talk to her in the first place? He gave her my phone number, and she reached out to me. I don't speak of my father, but she asked me genuine questions and didn't come across angry. More just curious about my side of things. She started the voicemail by telling me she didn't even know he had a daughter until one of my brothers let it slip, and she found it weird there was a child she literally had never heard of. You do hate and resent your father, whether you admit it or not. I really don't, but if you believe that, it's fine. This didn't come from a vengeful place. I don't hate him. I really don't. I didn't intentionally try to be his relationship. His ex told me she had her own suspicions, and if anything, I just made them clearer to her. She has a child and almost moved her entire life to be with him. I personally think I would be a bigger idiot if I didn't say something. I personally don't want to go into detail about my childhood with him because 1, I think it's just going to convince people further that I hate him, and 2, it's personal, and I'd rather not go over my abuse fully on the internet. I understand you're only getting my side of things, but I hope you believe me when I say during that phone call, I wasn't intentionally trying to trash talk my dad. Before this, it's been over 5 years since I actually had a conversation with him. I never blocked his phone number because I'm the oldest of 4 siblings, and I wanted to keep some sort of communication open in the event they needed me while they were with him. I always told my siblings I would drop anything I was doing to come pick them up while they were with him because, trust me, it was needed. He lives in bum-duck nowhere, and my mother doesn't drive. After all this happened, I made the decision to block him and be done with it all. At this point, all of my siblings have cell phones or cars, so I don't need some form of open communication with him. People are saying because of the way I speak about him and how I sound, that means I still hate him or hold a grudge, so I'll just try my best to clear that up again. I don't hate him. I never did. He's irrelevant in my life at this point. I don't think about him, and if I hated him, he would hold some sort of active place in my mind, which definitely isn't the case. I nothing him. Of course it's going to seem like I have negative feelings because the issue is about what kind of person he is, and the history there is mostly negative. I'm not sitting at home rubbing my hands together giggling about the mess I've caused. I take responsibility knowing that what I may have said to his ex influenced her decision. But I still stand by what I told her because I believe what I did was the right thing, which also seems to be the general consensus here. I know everyone would have been happier in this situation if I didn't get involved, but I can almost certainly say that wouldn't have been the case a year or two down the line. Also, after my mom and dad got divorced, my mother very rarely ever spoke about my dad. She did not poison my mind because all of my opinions, and everything I told his ex, were opinions formed based on his actions. Not the idiot. I don't think she would have reacted that strongly unless she already had her own misgivings about his behavior. People have told me negative things about my husband, but if they conflict with what I know, I discount them. I, 31 female, am the oldest of 4 sisters, 30, 28, 25. My middle sisters both married before me, and I got married last May. At each of our weddings, our something old was a flower-shaped hairpin that belonged to our mom. Our mom passed away when we were teens, so having that pin was a way for each of us to include her memory in our special days. Since I got married most recently, I have the pin at my apartment. Last week, my youngest sister announced her engagement in our family group chat, then texted me to ask that I send her the pin. Here's the thing. All my sisters were my bridesmaids, along with some friends. At my bachelorette party, after my friends had left, my sister and I stayed up, a little drunk and feeling very deep in that post-party kind of way. We started talking about our mother. My middle sisters and I got emotional, saying how much we missed her. My youngest sister, however, was very quiet. I asked her what was up, and she started talking about how she was always our mom's least favorite. How, even when mom was dying, she didn't say as good a goodbye to her as she did to the rest of us. And how, if mom had lived, they'd probably have a terrible relationship. My middle sisters and I tried to talk her out of it, saying that of course our mother loved her and stuff like that. But finally, my little sister kind of snapped and just shouted, "Look, I hated that ducking bee, okay?" Then she started crying and went home. The next day, I called my sister. I asked her if she'd meant everything she said the night before. She said she did. She said that she knew our mother loved her, and she knew our mother never did anything bad to her, but that she could always tell that our mom secretly regretted having a 4th kid. She suspected our mom of wanting a son, and had been disappointed by a 4th girl. Personally, I don't believe this is true. As the oldest, I had a lot of conversations with my mom before she died that my sisters weren't party to, and she always said that she would have loathed having boys. In fact, I always thought that my youngest sister was her favorite. My sister ended the conversation saying, "Look, that woman might have been my mom, but I didn't like her very much." I responded to my sister's text about the pin, saying that I wasn't sure why she wanted to wear it, considering her strained relationship with our mother's memory. My sister responded, "All of you wore it, I should wear it too." I don't think she should wear it just because we did. It's supposed to represent our mom's memory, and if she doesn't look at our mom's memory fondly, I don't want her disrespecting the pin by wearing it dishonestly. I told her that I would hold on to the pin for now, and we could discuss it more later if she reflects more on what the pin actually represents. Am I the idiot? Yes, you are an idiot. Your sister obviously has a lot of complicated feelings about your mother. That's okay. It's not your place to deny her right to participate in this tradition. You are being cruel. You don't get to invalidate how she feels just because you don't see it in the same way she does. Perhaps to you, the pin is about your mother. But consider for a second that to her it could be about feeling connected to you and your other sisters. And honestly, if she already has strained feelings about your mother, it may just make it worse to deny her the connection you all got to have on your special day. Edit. I've texted my sister. I told her that I held out on her with the pen because I was holding on to some hurt about what she'd said about our mother last year, but that it wasn't my place to dictate how she dealt with our mother's memory, and certainly not my place to gatekeep our mother's heirlooms. I told her I'd send the pen in the mail tomorrow. Luckily, my sister's a very understanding person and says she gets why I acted as I did. So, my fiance, 37 male, and I, 30 female, are getting married in April. He has a 15-year-old daughter who currently lives with us, but will be moving in with her grandparents soon for school. Her mother, my fiance's first wife, passed away 2 years ago from cancer. I met my fiance while he was married, but nothing romantic happened between us until after she passed. However, just the fact that I've met his daughter as a family friend during that time has made her incredibly distrustful of me, even though we never had an affair, and I've made that very clear to her. Anyways, recently she told my fiance that she'd like to read a poem at our wedding during the speech portions. It's one based on loss and family, and is quite a nice poem, but she'd like to publicly dedicate it to her late mom with a short speech after. I read the draft of it and am incredibly unhappy with how it sounds. Essentially, she wants to talk about how happy her dad and mom used to be while she was alive, and how their marriage was the stuff of fairy tales. She ends it with "I hope me and my fiancé will have a fairy tale of their own," which is a nice sentiment if that was the only thing she's reading. Basically, I feel like she'd be using our wedding to reminisce how my fiancé's last marriage was the unattainable stuff of fairy tales, and I'd just be lucky to get a tiny piece of what they had. It sure feels like an intentional jab towards me. I get that she's still grieving and she's a kid and all that, but I really don't want this read at our wedding, which I want to be a celebration of new beginnings, not death or grief or ex-wives. I've talked to my fiancé, and he sees 100% nothing wrong with the speech, which has frankly upset me beyond what I'd imagined. I feel like he's insisting on prioritizing her during a day that should be about me and him only, not his kid or ex. I've mulled over asking her directly to cut the speech portion and just read the poem, perhaps with a nice "dedicated to my mom" at the end and nothing more. Am I the idiot if I do this or something similar? Yes, you are the idiot. Let's see. 1. Your fiancé's kid lost her mom only 2 years ago, when she was 13. How long until you started dating her dad? Give her a ducking break. Most teenagers have it hard enough with living parents divorcing. 2. You are marrying a widower, not some random guy with an ex. That's his late wife, by the way, not his ex. And these types of relationships mean his late wife will always more or less have a presence in yours. 3. No, a wedding with a person with kids is not just about you and him. It includes the kids' future as well. No one attending this wedding is under any delusion that you're marrying a guy without significant baggage here. 4. I feel like he's weirdly prioritizing her during a day that should be about me and him only, not his kid or ex. There's literally so much wrong in this one sentence that I'm convinced you're leaving out a ton of nasty crap. Fashion is a hobby I have. I like to buy and sell designer clothes. I love to shop for people. I actually make okay money doing this as a part-time job. My dad and stepmom make fun of me for it and call me vain. They don't think it's a valuable use of my time, but I don't care. It's what I like. Despite making fun of me for my hobby, my stepmom constantly borrows my clothes, oftentimes without my permission. I have told my dad about this. He says not to be selfish. It's her house. She helps to take care of you. This pisses me off, but whatever. I recently saved up a bunch of money and bought a white silk-lined Burberry blazer. This is a pretty expensive jacket. My stepmother borrowed it for what I'm assuming is Thanksgiving, and put it back in my closet with a huge stain on it. She didn't even tell me she stained it, and she let the stain set in for a day or so in my closet. I went directly to her and said, "What the duck did you do to my coat?" and she laughed and said she spilled a bit of wine on it and it was no big deal. I could just have it dry cleaned. I asked her if she was going to pay for it. She said no. And even if I get it dry cleaned, there might be permanent discoloration in the area of the stain. I demanded that she pay for the dry cleaning, and if it didn't work, she had to buy me a new jacket. And she laughed again and said, "Tough luck." I ducking lost it at her, cursed at her, and got grounded by my dad. I plotted and came up with the idea to empty some wine in a spray bottle and spray some of her white blouses with red wine. I did it, and when she noticed, she was furious. She is even telling my dad that she wants me to go live with my mom, even though I only have one semester of high school left. My dad wants me to apologize, but I'm not going to until she pays for my coat. I don't think I'm in the wrong here. Am I the idiot? Yes, the idiot. But I understand where you're coming from. Your stepmom is clearly the idiot, and you responded in an idiot manner. But as a fellow clothing reseller, the thought of someone carelessly trashing a freaking Burberry blazer would probably drive me off the deep end too. Basic human decency dictates that if you borrow something from someone, ask first, and if you damage it, apologize and do what you can to fix it. The fact that your stepmom has done neither is unfortunate, and you don't deserve to be treated that way. But with that said, to be frank, what's right and wrong doesn't matter in this instance. Your dad has demonstrated that he's on her side regardless of whether or not she's wrong, and the two of them are in control of your living situation. So deal with it in whatever way is easiest for you, and be glad that they won't be in control of it for much longer.